What's going on, guys? So today we have this Model 3 Highland and we are going to be putting PPF. So the first part of the video is going to be the template, which is a prototype of our design for the Model 3 front bumper. We're going to have it for the do-yourself front kit like we normally do. It includes the fender, the hood, the bumper, the headlights, and the mirrors. And that's typically what the front protection kit in also shops is going to be. So we're going to be installing this in a prototype version of our bumper. And then we'll also show you how a pro install would do it, where it would charge a little bit more, but they would use a bulk piece, which means a giant piece of no template, and then they would actually cut everything off. So before I get started, I want to kind of go over this. We did not prep this fully, okay? This is my wife's daily driver. In the last 2.5 weeks, we did not have PPF on the front, actually. There's a lot of cicadas. There's just a lot of bugs right now in Tennessee, and it just got bombarded with bug guts. And I actually already cleaned this with prep wash, did iron decon, and a lot of etching has already happened. And what etching means is the bug guts are pretty acidic, so it actually etches into the clear coat of the paint, which is not good. But it's not the end of the world. What you'll have to do is use something like a DA polisher and use a polish compound, and then that will actually get rid of it, but that does require a little bit of work. But for today's purposes, this is good enough. We're gonna go ahead and install it. But this is another reason why you want to add paint protection film, because not only does it protect from rock chips, but it can also protect from bird poop and also bug guts. But we are going to go ahead and just start, and we're gonna do something called reverse roll. And I've talked about it a lot in our courses. And this is a new sprayer that we're also going to be launching, so stay tuned for that. If you have carpal tunnel, lifesaver. But I actually did not spray a whole lot right here because I don't want it to stick a whole lot. And we're just going to roll this all out. And you got to hold it pretty tight. You see how it sticks? Because I actually don't have water right there, or not water, but and you want to hold that bottom whenever you do this. Cool. So that's called a reverse roll technique. I kind of rushed it a little bit, but it's okay. And you can see some areas did stick, but that's no problem because we can actually hydrate it right off the bat. So we are now going to make sure everything is unstuck, like here, right? Very easy. We're going to go ahead and just hydrate every part of this right here. You can see there's a lot of folds right there. That's no problem. You can see I can just wet it right away. The whole front is actually completely different from 2017 to 2024, but the fender, the hood, those are all different. Even the headlights, fog lights, there's none. However, the sides are actually pretty much the same, like the doors, the mirrors, the pillars. And then you go to the back, and the back is slightly different. The trunk hatch, and then also the tail lights are different on the new Highland. But that's kind of like difference between the two models. So what you'll see here is, I think there's two school of thought in the template. There's one I've seen where it kind of meets in the middle. I prefer actually having a thin piece in the middle, because I think it's easier once you have all this down to stretch it from one to another. So our kit is going to be like that. However, there's some where it just meet in the middle. I just don't think it's a natural middle, where I don't like seeing the line right down the middle. So that's kind of why we decided against that. Okay? And what we're trying to do, align it. And then once we align it, we are going to anchor it by using the tack solution. Okay? So first point is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and anchor this right here. And you can see, I feel pretty good about that. So go ahead, give it some tack. And for template, guys, I just want to be clear. It's very, very common and recommended that you actually go right around the edge. You actually don't want to go over because it will fail over time. So you want to be right to the edge of it, but right in the inside. Really, you're talking like 2 millimeter, right? Once we have this, the tack actually adheres it, then you can actually move this section. You can see how that fits perfectly. And then once we have it down and you feel comfortable, there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and tack this. So just go around this area. Same thing for here, is you actually want to be outside, right? So what we're doing is we've created this line right here from top right here all the way to this line. And you're going to see some areas where it's wanting to come back. And that's because there's also this kind of this bend right here. There's a concave right there. So we want to get that kind of cleared out. And then same thing for this one. I'm just going to go ahead and clear it out. We want to create this line because once you create this line, you can stretch it across. You can see right here, right off the bat, we have about 2 inches. It's a good amount of stretch. Why do we need to stretch that much? Because if you look at this car, it has this body line right here, which is pretty aggressive. Because we have that, we want to hydrate underneath it as well, even more, all right? And make sure this is moving. And once that's moving, we can actually start to stretch. And when you stretch it, you want to stretch it so that it fits right here. So you want to use a lot of your palm. You don't want to use single point. Like I don't want to stretch in a small area like here. And instead, we want to focus on other areas. All right, so go ahead. Just pull it all the way. So I'm just going to continue to just. Awesome, just like that. Okay, and then once you have it good, that's what we call pre-stretch. You can see that everything is still moving well. I'm just going to move this all the way across. And then I'm going to just anchor all of this. So put a little bit more tack into this area. And you're probably wondering, why don't I lift this car? Well, I kind of wanted to do it where it's more do yourself, right? Like most people aren't really gonna have a lift, I don't think, So I want it to be like what other people would be doing. They're gonna be doing it on the floor in their garage, to be honest. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and anchor this down right here in the bottom. Okay, so now we have this section right here where if I hold it, I can focus a little bit more on this, and I could make this path into this area, okay? And then from here on out, everything is still hydrated, everything is moving, and I know it's moving because I can actually pull this down. Spray a lot. Hold it down where you need to hold it. Kind of get rid of this air, right? Air is like bad for PPF. You want this to kind of exit out. So just, there you go. You see how it just relaxed like that? And then once you do that, you're gonna hold it where you need it to, which is just a little bit over. And then we're gonna go ahead and focus it on getting the water out. And this is an area that holds a lot of water, so just focus on a lot of that body line, just like I'm doing right here. All right, cool. And you can see all the water and all of that here. And this is where you can sweet. When you do this part, notice how I'm really focusing on that body line. Like I said, it likes to sit right there. So you really want to pull down on this water. Make sure you lubricate on top. That's how you don't damage the actual film. And then you're gonna just bring everything down. All this stuff you can kind of get later. But here we go. So we got all of that front done. And honestly, if you've gotten this far, that's honestly the hardest part. I really should have opened it up prior to it, but can we open the hood real quick? All right, so tip is to make sure this area is clean. There's a lot of debris that just sits there. So when you spray, it disturbs that area and it gets under your film. This is an area that you do want to clean quite a bit if you're gonna open it. I wanna show you right here. So what happens here is a lot of the water especially sits in these edges, and what happens when bubbles sit in these edges, because of gravity, it's gonna slowly go down and it can create air bubbles, not air bubbles, but bubbles in general just across this, and sometimes it creates like this body of water right there, right, as it kind of seeps down. So what you wanna do before you kind of move on to all the area is seal these edges, and you do that by using tack solution and spraying all across this area, and then you're going to seal it. Okay? You can see that it immediately kind of goes down. And before you move on, this is when you would actually look at for bubbles or really any areas. Like, it looks good. I didn't see any bubbles right here. Everything aligned really well. You can actually fold this over, but we're gonna save that for another time. You could also dry it and then fold over edges later, but this is a really clean edges. It goes all the way. It's a more of a hybrid approach when we're doing the edges. We try to put it in areas that matter and make sense for the do-yourselfer, right? Because edges do complicate a lot of the installation process. So now that being said, we're gonna go ahead and do this side, since pretty much the same once you get there, but let's go ahead. But you can see that I can easily just lift it up and then put it back down. There's a lot of tension right there. I'm gonna go ahead, before I move forward, this lines up almost perfectly. We'll go ahead and make sure I hydrate right up here. There you go. The first step is making sure this is aligned right here in the corner and then right here. So you're stretching the film across, right? So we're gonna start with this top corner. I want to use a palm technique as well. Hold it right there. Go ahead and get that corner, and then the double take right here. Just gonna hold this down. That feels pretty good. Notice I just put it all down, and I'm holding it down right here. We're going to use a good amount of tack right here, and then we're going to pull it right into that corner. Look how aligned it is right here, and we can still move this right to the edge right here. Everything is sprayed, and then let's go ahead. And there's a lot of exit points at this point. It's a very soft edge, and soft edges can be very challenging for it to stick. So in this, I think it's a better decision to go right underneath that soft edge so that it will stick a lot easier. All right, so we're gonna go ahead. This is gonna be fun right here. Just gonna go ahead and just, look at that. You see all that? It just pushed it all out. Cool. And this is called fingers, and what you want to do is just use a bunch of tack. I mean, right off the bat, I don't see any bubbles, so we're in good shape. And then I might get a little bit lower here. But what's happening here is that one, there's this valley, but two, it also needs to stretch a little bit because there's too much material, and if you see there's fingers underneath, so it needs to go that way a little bit. All across here, you're going to hold that in alignment. Great, right there. And you're just going to, I like holding this because it creates less tension. shooting a lot of tack into that area, holding it with your finger, and just being patient. I mean, you just got to get all that water out. And I like using a smaller squeegee at this one. And then notice how I have very, very minimal fingers all across here now. And just like any other areas, the body line is going to be a risk for water and things just sitting there. So I am going to really focus on it. And what you're doing is you're sealing all the edges. So I pretty much got 75% of the front bumper done, and it looks fantastic. It looks great. It looks a lot better and protected. The other side is exactly the same pretty much. So in this templated, and this is going to be common for many of them, what it's going to be is you are going to have another piece that connects right here. You can see the line. And what you want to do is you have to stretch it, because this actually goes all the way like about like that part of my hand. I mean, it goes really, really low. You don't need to protect every single centimeter of that. However, we want it to protect as much as we can. So for this, we are going to go ahead and do the same thing. Just hydrate the bottom lip and just put it down. All right. So you're going to, we call this a butt seam. Don't ask me who named it. So you want to be right next to it, okay? When you do seams, you never want to be overlapping, and that actually causes a lot of issues. It will fail over time. So what you want to do, what I like to do for seams is just kind of get some tack solution, and I push it into it just ever so gently, and that tends to help a lot with the seams. You want about 2-3 inches of grab, and then once you have that grab, this should be able to stretch across. Okay? Kind of go to the other side, and you can see it's still stretching. And here we go. When you stretch, you don't want to stretch right here. You want to stretch down the middle and move that stretch all the way to that area. So here we go. That looks pretty good. So like we did earlier, you're doing a pre-stretch. It's a good amount of stretch. So because you're looking at the top right here, but you're also trying to seam it. And then once I have that seamed, you could essentially move this. You see how the middle just kind of moves around because I have a lot of slip solution. And then you could just exit out into the vent, or the scoop, I guess. But now that you've stretched it, what you'll see is underneath is that your fingers will go away because you've stretched it right into the middle. So when you do this, as a pro tip, water is going to sit right here. Why? Because there's a lot of tension that's pulling and trapping a lot of that moisture inside right here. So be extremely careful when you do this. And I like really going from the top and then working my way out from the middle. That way I can at least get all this moisture down that body line as well. If you have a headlamp, this part will help extremely. But that's pretty much how our kit is going to work. It's going to be a two-piece kit like this. We think this is the best way to do it. It's very, very similar to the Model 3 and the previous one. I think it's actually easier. But in the next video, I'll show you what does it take for a pro install to do it. It's going to be very similar, but this time we're going to be bulking the whole front bumper. So stay tuned. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. We'll see you later.